Welcome back, my little nightmares. Me, Queen Nightmare, and I am going to read the Snarry story. And well, I'm gonna say this: that the story I was reading, I finished it because it was like it's one chapter left. Go through with it. He came to his senses, and I was like, oh, thank goodness I didn't have to beat someone. So that's good. What's up with me? I'm losing more patience with my dad because, he's, like, questioning me because I read a lot, and I'm like, I want to read, just let me read. Let me read. It's like, free me. Just let me read. Basically it. Okay, chapter 13. Harry caught up to Hermione in the library. Despite Ron's assurance, he was worried about how she was taking his news. I knew that this was a mistake, he thought. Hermione? She looked up at him. Her lips pursed. What is it, Harry? I'm a bit busy, she said. Busy helping you, I might add. I know that, and I appreciate it. Harry watched her return to the book, and she was holding to the shelf. And pull another one out. Her hands were trembling. She seemed to be going through books randomly, without reading their titles. If you'd rather not help me anymore, Harry trailed off, terrified of her response. I told you, I'm your friend. Maybe I haven't been a very good one, but you can trust me, you know. She was flipping through the index of another book, her back to Harry. Of course I know that. I never thought I couldn't trust you. Then why did you wait so long to come out to us? Did you really think we'd hate you? After we stood beside you against everything? Did you really think so little of us? Harry took a step back, unbalanced. Hermione, I said before that me taking so long to tell you had nothing to do with you, and it didn't. It had to do with me. You were afraid to tell us, Harry. It had to have something to do with us. Honestly, Hermione, it didn't. I was afraid to tell you because I was afraid to admit it to myself. I've known for a while, but I always ignored that part of me. It was like, as long as I never told anyone, I could always pretend I could have a normal life. I just wasn't ready to take the last step until now. Harry searched for the words to make her understand. Someone told me once that words have power, and he was right. It's scary to say it out loud at first, and it had nothing to do with who I was saying it to. It couldn't have been an empty room, or I wouldn't have said it until now. But I always knew you guys would stay by my side. I never doubted that, not until I left. Hermione turned to face him. Harry swallowed but did not answer. Oh, Harry! Hermione dropped her book and pulled him into a hug. Harry returned her embrace, gratefully. I didn't mean to hurt you like that, and I never really thought you didn't trust us. But Harry, you must know that we're all terrified that one day you're going to run off to fight Voldemort without us. I guess that's why I overreacted. If we don't know what you know, we can't help you. Well, I'm not going to run to Voldemort because I'm gay. I've seen him. He looks better than he did 2 years ago. But he's still not my type. Hermione laughed and wiped a tear from her eye. Thank you for telling us, Harry. Harry gave her another hug. You're welcome. Want to go back to the room? Hermione nodded, and the two left the library. In the hall, she asked, So, what are we the first to know? Oh, Well, no, one other person knows, but I can't tell you who. Hermione frowned at him, and he quickly continued. He's gay too, and I promise not to tell anyone about him. It's not that I don't want to tell you, but it's really not my place to say anything. And if it makes you feel better, I didn't plan on telling him. He figured it out. Hermione nodded. He knew she was trying to piece together clues. Did you two, Harry laughed. No. This time Hermione laughed. Wow, Harry, it wasn't Malfoy, was it? She had a playful glint in her eye. That's a lot of no's. When they returned to their friends, Harry could sense their unease, which was quickly relieved when they saw the smile on Harry and Hermione's faces. So what about Cho? Hermione asked, returning to her spot on the bed. Harry frowned. I feel bad about that now. I guess that was like what I said before about trying to be normal. I really got myself to believe that I was attracted to her. She's very pretty, so it really wasn't that hard. And I exaggerated my appreciation for her into something more. But I was fooling myself. When I look back on it, I realize I didn't care about her the way I should have. The way a boyfriend would have. I just didn't know it. Maybe I was using her so I wouldn't have to face what I really am. Ginny gave his arm a squeeze. Don't get yourself down about it, Harry. I don't think Cho was really all that in love with you either. It was what it was, and no one got really hurt. Right? Harry reflected on Ginny's words. I suppose so. I just feel bad about it. That's all. Well, you wouldn't be Harry if you didn't feel guilty about something, Ron said with a smile. And what did we hear about Hermione saying about Malfoy out in the hall? His eyebrows waggled as only as he could, thinking of subscribing to blondes with wands. Oh my gosh. Harry turned bright red and feigned anger. I don't like blondes. With a serious expression, Ron turned to Neville. He's got a thing for redheads, then. Poor guy. I'm not going to have to break his heart. Neville chuckled. Harry laughed. You wish. I like dark-haired guys. Thank you. Ron said. Flitwick. Then, you into short guys? Well, he would be just the right height, Harry said slowly. Harry! Hermione was wide-eyed. Cannot begin to consider how many ways hearing that has scared us all. Oh man. As the end of the summer loomed closer, Harry's small triumphs were increasingly shadowed by larger frustrations. Snape's tutoring continued, and Harry, in a series of tests that worried his friends no end, had discovered that he had blocked out most of the pain that Voldemort sent him through his scar. Only the worst crucios made it through to him. The young man was reasonably sure that his failure to block the pain entirely was due to his bond to the Dark Lord rather than a failure of his shield. So Snape had pronounced him to be as good at alchemy as the man could make him. He had also succeeded in removing himself from Voldemort's mind at will. Again, Snape's tutoring proved invaluable, as he had taught Harry the mental exercises used by clairvoyants. The markings later in the month would be the true tests, though, as Harry had no doubt that the pain that leaked through his bond would be far worse than what came from the Crucios, Harry stopped testing the bond since he was satisfied he could free himself from a vision. The nightmares were bad, whether they were brought on by one of Voldemort's bad moods or by Harry's memories of Atrocytes. Past. If the potion used by the Longbottoms did not work, Harry's skill alone would not be adequate. Any satisfaction at his new skills, Harry may have felt his dispelled by the thought that he was still failing Snape. Hermione had no ideas on how to break the mark without a more aggressive use of Harry's bond with Voldemort, and none were willing to accept that. They would have to wait until the week before the new term and hope Harry was able to learn more. Combat training continued, with Snape sometimes accepting help from others in the Order, and other times refusing their assistance. Usually the refusal heralded one of the special sessions with just Snape and the 5 students. The potion master had fashioned potion belts such as he were for all of them, and he drilled their use into them. Eventually their presence and use would become intuitive to the group, but for the time being they practiced with bottles of colored water. Each evening after dinner, all 5 spent time trying to grab the correct vial without looking. In a heated combat, there would be little time to read labels, so all potions had to be identified by touch and placement on the belt. In mock battles, Snape hammered them for missed opportunities to end a conflict with one of the potions, or more often for grabbing the wrong potion for the situation. To compound the students' exhaustion and confusion, everyone in the Order had taken it upon themselves to test their knowledge of spells. Harry and his friends had all but forgotten about Snape's assignment to memorize the endless list, but they quickly learned not to underestimate anyone in the manor. No one made it down a hallway or into the kitchen for dinner without hearing the shouted name of some real or imaginary spells. 4 of them had already done several essays on incorrect responses. Hermione, of course, knew every spell on Snape's list, alphabetically. Harry had a hard time resenting her for it, though. Her life may one day be saved by his life. Okay, why did they say her life? His life may one day be saved by her knowledge. He knew that. Finally, with just less than 2 weeks until his return to school, Harry was exhausted. His every waking moment was spent working on something. His nights were too often haunted. Snape had provided a dreamless sleep potion, but Voldemort's anger often broke through, and the potion master did not allow him to use it every night for fear of side effects. Today, in fact, Harry found himself learning to brew the potion. In early August, Snape had slightly modified their potions lessons to focus on several that Harry would likely need. They had done a variety of healing potions and a few of the less questionable brews of the students' belts. And Snape was making a point of letting Harry know where he could purchase several others that were beyond his skills as a 6th year. So he's 16 or 17. Huh. He's still above the legal age. If you don't know that, in England, the legal age to be with someone is the age of 13, but I think that's like for people that are teenagers. But I heard that if you don't know who Daz Games is, he's from England. He said that he could date a 16-year-old, and he's a 36-year-old, I think, at the time. I'm not too sure. And I think he said that, and I said, wow. So around 16 is an acceptable age to date a 30-year-old, which is okay. So, I mean, hey, go for it, dude. I'm talking to Harry. Sorry. The potion for phantom pain is called the Limbless Draught. Snape said as he watched Harry work on the dreamless sleep potion. Hold on. Okay, sorry. He always discussed the most difficult potions in that tone, as he was commenting on the weather. It isn't restricted, just hard to find due to its limited demand. Any respectable potion shop should be able to provide you with it once the batch I made is used up. I am sure there will be times in the future when its side effects will be needed. Harry simply nodded in response. He hated that he needed to know that it was called a limbless drought. He hated that he needed to know how to brew dreamless sleep. He hated that in a few weeks he would probably be left without Snape to simply hand him the bottle when the dreams got bad. He was too tired to try to fight off the demons that waited for him to sleep. He hated himself for not knowing how to keep that from happening. A part that was growing day by day, wanted the markings to happen tonight, now, so he could witness them and figure out how to save Snape. Though they talked a lot now, their conversations always seemed to focus on Harry. Snape was making good on his promise to see that Harry was prepared to fight. And when they were not discussing tactics or magical theories, they were talking about Harry's state of mind or relationship with his friends. Severus had been very pleased to hear that Harry had come out to them. He had even smiled, and Harry could not help but note that those dark-colored, cold eyes had held a smoky warmth, for just a moment. As he stirred his cauldron, Harry was overcome with a need to learn more about his teacher. The man was, as usual, working on the other side of the room. Harry turned slightly and caught sight of his professor, who had rolled up his sleeves and to keep them. I don't know where that came from. To keep them from away from flames and volatile liquids. The young wizard reflected briefly on the first day. Snape had bared his arms in his presence, as if with so much of their relationship the meaning of the gesture was never stated. But Harry took it as a sign of trust. As far as he knew, Snape never willingly allowed anyone to see his mark, but hiding it made for more work when brewing potions. Professor, may I ask you a question? Snape raised an eyebrow. My stomach. I need to eat. Snape raised an eyebrow. You may, though you understand that I may not answer it. Probably not, Harry thought, but asked anyway. Why did you decide to join him? If my father and his friends were just part of the reason, what was the rest? The question was one he had wanted to ask, but only recently did he feel comfortable enough to do it. He still expected no answer, but he also knew the other man would not be angry at him for wanting to know. Would it shock you if I told you I agreed with him? Harry thought about his answer for some time. He had learned that the potion master often chose answers that misled simply to provoke a response. Agreed with him about what? Snape's lip curled a bit, and Harry guessed that he had avoided a trap. Ooh, yes. I agreed with him that wizards should not have to live in fear of being discovered by muggles. I agreed that it was unfair to punish a wizard for revealing himself when muggles are forcing themselves upon us daily. There's nothing wrong with wanting equality, I guess, Harry said slowly. Indeed, and my words make it seem almost noble. But, in truth, Harry, it was never noble. It was never about equality. It was about power, control, and revenge. The Dark Lord never spoke of equality. He spoke of dominance, though it is far worse than now than it ever was. It was never a noble cause, but the darkness drew me, I admit. And as I seem to be suffering from an honest streak, I will tell you, Harry, that your father was only a small part of what drove me to that darkness. While his words may have been the loudest, I think they often hurt less than the whispers. At least I could try to fight back against your father, though I never really succeeded. But that was easier than pretending not to hear the words more softly spoken. So when the Dark Lord rose and gave impassioned speeches about showing ourselves to the world, punishing those who would force us to hide, when he spoke about the reckoning against the people who drove us into shadows, I listened. And yes, some of that spoke of to me being gay, but not at all. Not all of it. I had learned very early in my life to hide most of myself from the world, as it could be used as ammunition. My family taught me that, and it was reinforced in school. And and not just by your father, I assure you. Though Slytherin may show a solid front to the world, it is far more cruel to those within its dungeons than without. Harry kept his eyes on his potion, waiting for it to finish changing color before adding the final ingredients. He had no idea how to reply to Snape's words. It seemed foolish to try to console him over actions long past, but he felt he had to acknowledge somehow the trust the man showed in him. Harry had little doubt that few people had even thought as much as Snape's story. Thank you, sir. He knew Snape would understand what that meant. A hand on his shoulder was the only reply. I'm telling you this for a reason, Harry. Perhaps more than one reason, but this is most important. Snape kept his hand on Harry's shoulder as he spoke from behind him. No matter what they do, no matter what they do to you, the Dark Lord, his Death Eaters, or the world itself, never let them make you hate. Fear them, mock them, pity them, fight them, kill them, if you have to, but don't hate them. Hate is a habit, Harry. It gets into your blood, and every day the hatred comes easier, quicker, and then You hate everyone, simply out of habit. Simply out of habit. Even people you shouldn't hate. People you might have even become friends if you weren't so used to hate. The two stood there in silence. Harry ignored the potion in front of him. His attention focused on the warmth and the strength of the hand on his shoulder. After several heartbeats, Snape continued. Most people who give in to that never find their way out of it. A few escape the darkness, and the lucky ones can even be saved. But the most of us, it's too late. We get only a final glimmer of light before it's all over. Snape's words and the unspoken words lingered between them were too much for Harry. With a relief, he saw his potion fade into a light yellow and grabbed the final ingredients. Is it ready for unicorn tears? Professor's voice wavered. Yes. Snape let his hand slide from Harry's shoulder. When the potion shimmered silver, he said simply, Good job, Harry. Bottling the potion and cleaning up his area, Harry's thoughts were filled with protests. He kept them to himself, though, as he always did. He set the potion on the shelf above Snape's table and turned to leave with his fatigue caught up to him. Tripping over his own robes, he tumbled head first toward the potion master, who reached out to support him. Harry grabbed onto the man as they collided forcefully. His stomach flipped. Suddenly he was falling backwards. My cauldron! He put out his wand to steady the cauldron on the table, even as he was falling. With a thud, he hit the floor. Wild brown hair, an ear, and dark blue robes filled his sight as he brought his bare arms to deflect the other body from landing on top of him. With another lurch of his stomach, Harry felt himself falling again, this time to the right, as Snape pushed him sideways. Damn it, Harry! Snape growled. You have to be more careful. If the cauldron got spilled, it could have destroyed half the rooms up here. Harry shook his head and tried to regain his bearings. Snape was gazing at him with an expectant expression. He held his hand out to Harry. You are unhurt, I assume? Harry nodded and reached out to accept the other man's help, but pulled his hand back in shock. Your mark, I touched your mark when I fell. Harry's expression grew stony, and he unrolled his sleeve, holding the brand again. Harry understood Snape's reaction and stood quickly. I'm so sorry. It's not... Harry tried to sort out what had happened. When I touched the mark, I entered your mind, and it was just like what happens with Voldemort. As soon as I touched your arm, I thought I was falling backward. You charmed the cauldron, right? Snape's expression was still guarded when he nodded. I saw that through your eyes. Then I saw me falling on you. I could see my ear. Then I pushed me. I mean, you pushed me off. I guess that broke my contact with the mark. Because after that, I was back in my own body, falling sideways again. Did you feel anything else? Snape asked slowly. Mostly your annoyance, Harry laughed. This thing keeps surprising me. He gestured to his scar. Indeed, Snape said. We shall both have to be more careful in the future. Suddenly worried, Harry asked, Do you think he saw anything?
This is hard to guess, but it is my belief that the mark burns whenever he turns his attention to the bond. It is not burning during the fall or now. Whatever happened to you most certainly was directed in some way through him as the common link, but he was either unaware of it or it happened too quickly for him to connect to us. Harry was still a bit terrified, and his expression must have showed it. Relax, Harry. It is not worth worrying over. So close to the summer's end. Harry did worry about it, and when he returned to his friends, he shared what happened. Do you think that means you can do something to the mark? Well, technically he has a part of Voldemort, doesn't he? Can't he do what Voldemort does with the mark itself? Well, that's me saying that, but I mean, that's my question to you guys. Because technically, Harry and Voldemort are the same person. Well, kind of. Okay. Snape kept his... Oh, wait. Whoops. I'm telling you... Me. What? Oh, I went down. Okay, there we go. Harry did worry about it, and when he returned to his friends, he shared what happened. Do you think that means you can do something to the mark? Neville asked, though they were all thinking it. Maybe, Harry said. What do you think, Hermione? Frowning, the young witch made some more notes before answering, I really don't know. It definitely shows that the scar is more like a mark than anyone ever thought. I wonder what would have happened if the mark had been burning when it happened. Harry turned pale. What do you think that would do? Maybe nothing. Maybe you'd feel whatever Snape did. You might share the pain or even project it back to Voldemort, since your link probably works both ways. Unlike the mark, either way, I don't think it's a good idea to try it out. Harry simply nodded. The markings will be tomorrow night. Snape's going in the morning to gather them and get them ready. Everyone nodded. They all knew it was coming, and they all worried for Harry. I'll take the potion for a little before midnight. I should last for 4 hours. It should last for 4 hours. Harry had been slipping in and out of Voldemort's mind all day, afraid that some change in plans would cause him to miss the markings. Everything had remained on schedule, though, and when Harry once again filled himself with rage and faded away from his body, it was with less than a quarter hour until the ceremony was set to begin. Harry was just in the time to witness a murder. Oh, well, damn. That was nothing new, of course. A detached part of Harry's mind was relieved that the victim wore a mask. It worried him sometimes that watching Death Eaters die was easier. Is this Voldemort talking? Please tell me. What's my voice again? Remember. I'm just going to say it normal. Remember this. I did not accept failure. He turned his attention to the children kneeling at the foot of the dais. Crabbe, Goyle, Parkinson, and Knott were prostrate. Okay. Before him. Yeah, that's prostrate. Never heard of that. Before him. No doubt taught the proper posture by their loyal parents. The two Ravenclaws, Brookle, I think that's an H. Yeah. Brocklehurst, and Chambers were doing their best to imitate the Slytherins, as was Summers. He took a deep breath through his mouth, testing the air, fear like a sweet perfume, hovering close along with another scent, one that was new to the markings, but just as welcome. Awe radiated from the seven, as it had from the Malfoy boy, and he basked in it. This was right, as it should be. His first followers respected and obeyed him as their leader. These new children of his worshipped him as a god. That would suck if Malfoy was a god, or Zeus, if you're going to do mythology. If he was a god, that would suck. Do you know how boring life would be if he was the god? We would all die. Humans would never exist. As all would someday. Beckoning the first to approach, he drew his wand. Why do you come here? Before me, not. Why do you give your life to me? For I shall demand nothing less. Eyes cast to the floor, not knelt before him. My life has always been yours, as you have always been my lord. I come before you to serve you better. Well said, my child. Stand and bear your arm. The boy obeyed. Sick tattoo, bro. You know what? I'm not a big fan of tats, but if I ever get a tattoo, it would probably be the mark. But then again, my dad would murder me. So when my dad dies, we'll get one. That would be the celebration. I'll get one on my... Is it on the left arm or the right arm? Because I always remember it on the left. But I thought it also was on the right. But never mind. The boy obeyed, and with a whispered spell, the tip of his wand glowed red. The sweet smell of burnt... Sweet? I'm sorry, but burning flesh does not smell like sweetness. Chased away the other scents in the room, and the delicious scream... What is this? Is he a cannibal? Is he a sadist or a masochist? Why am I asking? Scream drowned out his chanting as he drove the tip of his wand deeper into the boy's arm. He dipped his mind into the other's pain, savoring it like wine on a connoisseur's tongue. Skin cracked and peeled away as an inky blackness seeped from his wand, curling out in the pattern that decorated all his worshippers and claimed them as his own. Magic encased the student and held him upright as other charms wrapped around his mind and heart seeped into his bones. Having branded and bond his newest possession, he allowed it to fall and motioned for the next to follow. As Parkinson's girl made her way trembling up the steps to him, Malfoy and Snape, still masked, dragged the unconscious Knot away. He may not survive the night, but most did, and those that died were too weak to be of use anyway. What? How did he die? Died of shock? Because that's the thing. 2 hours later, Harry shuddered as he pulled himself from the horror. At some point, he had curled into a ball. Now he was again in control of his body. He had no desire to change that. Harry, are you awake? Ron's voice came from nearby. Should we get someone? Hermione's voice sounded small and unsure. Harry shook his head. A mistake? Nausea swept through him. He barely managed to roll over in time to be sick all over the floor. When he stopped trembling, Hermione had already made short work of the mess with a quick spell. Ginny was sitting on the bed next to him, gently rubbing his back. "Are you okay, Harry?" Neville asked as he handed him a glass of water. "I think Dumbledore's still here, waiting for Snape to get back." "No, I'll be okay. I guess I was just—" "Don't talk about it, Harry," Hermione said. She had tucked her quill into her notebook. "It can wait, and you look like you should use some sleep. Do you want us to stay a bit, or just wait for you to sleep more? I don't think I've ever been this tired. I just want to close my eyes and never open them again." "Wait, a tick?" Ron said. "Any idea where Snape keeps the dreamless sleep potion?" "I'd forgotten about that. It's on the shelf above the table on the right. Can you get the bottle? It's half empty, not the full one." Ron took only a moment to find the potion and bring it back. "Thanks, Ron." Harry nodded in response, and Harry was again grateful for his friend's forethought. Taking care of him was becoming second nature, and he looked forward to the day where none of them felt the need to tend to him. Morning arrived far too soon, but with some good news. Snape had returned that night, and had cancelled the morning lessons. Harry chose to go back to bed after breakfast. He forgot to take another dose of the potion and woke up sweating, with the sound of sizzling flesh playing in his mind. Lunch found Harry still in bed, but sitting up and avoiding sleep at all cost. Somehow, shortly after his nightmare had forced him awake, the other students had found their way into his room, one by one. Jokes, games, and pointless chatter filled the morning and distracted him from thinking about why his hands were still shaking. It also distracted his friends from haunted looks in his eyes, though none would have ever said so to him. Potion lessons in afternoon went on as planned. Harry tried to compose himself as he entered Snape's room. I seem to be missing a bottle of dreamless sleep potion, Mr. Potter. I assume you know its whereabouts?" "Oh yeah, sorry about that, Professor. I took some last night, just a regular dose. I have the bottle in my room." "Did not trust your own work?" Snape nodded to the bottle Harry had brewed earlier. Harry knew he failed to keep his voice steady as he said, "I had a feeling I needed it to be as strong as possible." Snape nodded as his back still to Harry as he worked on his own cauldron. I'm starting to stutter, I'm sorry. "And did the limbless's draught work?" "Yeah, it worked perfectly. I almost wish it hadn't." Snape's eyes were laced with sorrow when he turned around. He spoke quietly. "It was that bad?" Harry nodded and sat on the stool in front of his work area. "You could not escape his mind then?" Harry bit his lip. He had expected this question, and he knew he would not be able to lie about it. "I didn't try." "Why in the world?" Harry looked up to see the other man's dark eyes shift from confusion to anger. "Damn it, Harry! Stupid Gryffindor heroics! You need to worry about yourself a little more. And the rest of the world quite a bit less." interesting words coming from a traitorous Slytherin, who's going to kill him, to get himself killed in a week to save me. It's my decision, Harry. Fine, and this one's mine. Snape glared at him, fist clenched. I have warned you several times that if you actively sought out the Dark Lord's mind, it'd make sure you regret it. Harry chuckled mirthlessly. I've heard of this word before. I don't know what it's about. I have to look it up. Or you guys tell me. Then throw out the rest of the dreamless sleep potion. The anger seeped from Snape's face. Honestly, Harry, what were you thinking? He sat down beside the young man. You know what I was thinking. I learned a lot last night. Or I think I did. I still need to talk to Hermione. I just can't focus myself to think too much about it. What he did was horrible enough just to watch, but to feel how he felt? Harry swallowed hard. His throat was getting tight, and he tried hard not to cry. He was too old to start sobbing. I never knew how much the pain distracted me from his other thoughts, from how much he enjoys it. His voice cracked. He buried his face in his hands and reveled and relived the markings. He could not keep the tears away. Snape's arm fell across his shoulders, stiff and awkward. Harry regretted falling apart. He knew Snape was uncomfortable, wiping his face on his sleeve. He said, I'm sorry about this, Professor. As you should be. That's twice this summer I've had to endure your tears. You really should be doing this. When did I turn into a Scottish person? I hate this. Hate myself sometimes. You really should be doing this with Minerva or Albus or even Lupin. I think you'd be used to it. It is far easier to tolerate hysterics than you have gone out of your way to cause the breakdown. At the very least, you are very expected to try to stop someone's tears when you are too busy enjoying them. Harry found a smile. Careful, Professor. There's that sense of humor again. Snape glared him down. Nonsense. For the love of everything. Nah. I'm getting into the story more. You know how you fall in love with a story? It's at that point where I'm in love with the story. I'm like, when is the romance starting? And is there going to be a romance? That's my question. Holy crap, another long chapter. How long has this been? You know what? Let's go over an hour. Let's do it again. Hold on. Drink break. Shouldn't have done that. Where'd my cat go? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Oh, if you heard that, that was some part in my leg. Okay. I'm gonna read more. Chapter 14. The day after the markings, Harry discovered that time, and even the Order of the Phoenix itself, was against him in his flight to save his professor. Rather than having time to spend with his friends, trying to figure out everything Harry had witnessed, he was packing up his trunk. As he and the rest scoured the manor in search of items misplaced over the past few months, he found himself thinking of Luna, her similar plight. Sorry. I can read plight at the end of last term. He wondered if he had spotted, sorry, I burped, any crumple-horned snorkax. It's those death ones, right? The ones that only people can see if they have experienced death. With his trunk finally ready and waiting at the door along with his friends for transport to Hogwarts, Harry sat in the kitchen and complained to Remus about the sudden change in living arrangements. I don't see why we all have to go back to school now. The term doesn't start until next week. You know it's safer there, Harry. It's just a matter of time before the place is found out, after all. Besides, your teachers need to prepare the school, and we can't spare anyone to keep an eye on our kids. On you kids, not our kids. Well, technically. Harry was about to protest on that they were not kids and did not need constant monitoring, but closed his mouth. He knew Remus was right, and he really did not mind going back to the school. But he also knew that the answer to saving Snape was buried somewhere in what he had seen yesterday. He resented having to spend most of the day doing anything but sort it all out. Mrs. Weasley ushered her children along with Neville and Hermione into the kitchen. She, it seemed, agreed with Harry. I can be spared, Remus. And I told Albus as much, but he chose to dismiss the idea. It's not safe here, Molly, or it won't be here for much longer. Hogwarts has wards. It doesn't have me. Mrs. Weasley slammed a pan down on the counter. You do not fuck with Mrs. Weasley. I'm sorry I said the F word, but you do not mess with Mrs. Weasley. You don't mess with her because you never mess with Mama Bear. Yes, Tonks does become Mama Bear, but Mrs. Weasley has been the expert as Mama Bear. And my question exactly, well, if you haven't seen the movies, this is going to be a big spoiler, so jump ahead a little bit. They use a wardrobe to get in, so technically it's not that safe. If you've seen the Half-Blood Prince. I think it happened in the Half-Blood Prince. Right? Like the Order of the Phoenix, and then the Half-Blood Prince came out. And this is the Half-Blood Prince. Cool. Gotcha. It doesn't have me. Harry nearly jumped out of his chair. He had seen his friend's mother upset at all manner of things, but she had never seemed so angry. Her hands were white, and Harry could almost imagine they were denting the pan she gripped. It's a mother's job to protect her children. Molly, Remus said calmly, if though some feat of magic far beyond anything even you know who has yet managed, a group of Death Eaters were to get into Hogwarts, past the wards and teachers and the Aurors, do you know what will happen? Harry saw Mrs. Weasley flinch at the mention of the Death Eaters, but she did not answer. Mrs. Weasley's right. The house is way safer than Hogwarts because, the Death Eaters are so focused on Harry going to Hogwarts or his friends going to Hogwarts that they're trying to get into Hogwarts, or they're going to kill Dumbledore. Damn it! Why do I spoil things? But then again, that's duh. If you haven't seen the movies. or like heard of anything that happens in the movies. I think that's the first thing someone brings up. Hi, how you doing? Have you seen Harry Potter? Do you want to talk about like the death of Dumbledore? I mean, like what the happened there, you know? That's like the third thing you ask about the series. Okay, sorry. Remus sat back in his chair and charmed the silverware on the table to stand on end. Their first act will be to separate Harry from his friends. Remus sent a spoon hovering to one side and the four forks to the other. A wall of knives floated between them. Do you know what happens then? Remus asked casually. Nodded. Oh, sorry, my ear. Harry will proceed to protect his friends, gesturing to the forks. He said his friends, and his friends will proceed to protect him. And do you know what else will happen? Remus. Ron will protect his little sister. Ginny will protect her big brother. And just like they promised, Hermione will step up to the challenge in the manner that will surpass anything she has done in the past. That is no small thing. And Neville's a long bottom. Remus gazed at his dancing silverware thoughtfully for a moment. With a flick of his wand, the knives dropped from the air, clattering on the table. Hell, Molly, I almost feel bad for the Death Eaters. Everyone at the table sat up a bit straighter when Remus mentioned their names. But the problem is that Harry's not the target this time. They're just trying to get rid of Dumbledore right now. They're trying to make a diversion. That Snape would go after Harry and everyone would be like, oh no, we have to protect Harry, but not Dumbledore. So, that's very genius. Sorry, there's something behind me. Okay. When Remus mentioned their names, and Harry wished he felt as confident as the werewolf appeared. Mrs. Weasley frowned. I wish I could agree with you, Remus. That's true. She's right. Listen to her. Just as the group finished dinner, Snape swept into the kitchen and ordered them to the attic. They had missed all lessons that day due to their packing, and Harry had not even known the man was in the building. But there had always been an understanding that in the evening the students were left to their own devices. And all were curious. Upstairs, Snape stood beside a table that held several ornate wooden boxes. Pencil cases? Harry thought. With no preamble, Snape picked up the boxes and handed on to each. Harry's bore the letters HP engraved on the top. He looked over to see that everyone had got one with their own monogram. What I am giving you, Snape lectured, is not to be mistaken for a gift. It is not an indication of warm regards, or, for that matter, any particular recession of dislike. He flashed his signature sneer before continuing. But I will insist that any gratitude not to be accompanied with a display of such. Are we clear? Everyone nodded, and the man looked expectantly at them, as no one seemed willing to take the lead. Harry finally opened his box. Harry found a wand resting in a dark green velvet. Not just a wand, but his wand. His hand quickly found a reassuring length of the wand in his pocket robe. He looked at his friends, confused. His friends, however, had opened their own gifts that were not gifts, and were displaying various degrees of awe. Next to him, Ron was holding a flawless masterpiece. He held it for Harry to see. Even the grains of the wood seemed perfectly placed. Hermione and Ginny and Neville were comparing theirs, all too caught up with their own excitement, from where he stood and having very little experience with wands. Harry could still see that the ones his friends held were as much a work of art as a tool. He gazed again into his own box and tried not to be disappointed at its ordinariness. These wands are not the sturdy, functional pieces of Ollivander spits out, Snape said, maintaining his lecturing tone. They were fashioned in Barcelona. Sorry, Tomas here. By the de Montanus. Every jaw but Harry's dropped at that revelation. Harry knew he was missing something, and as usual, Ron leaned over and filled him in. The Montanus make the best wands in the world. These must cost a fortune. The cost, Mr. Weasley, is immaterial. He raised a hand to forestall their thanks, and Harry knew better than to protest the man's casual reference to the rapidly approaching first day of school, when Snape's finances would no longer matter. Again, I will not tolerate any gratitude. You will not be using these wands during your lessons. In fact, you will not show them to anyone at all. Like the potion belts, you are not to keep secret. Snape plucked the wooden case from Ron's hand and lifted the velvet bottom out. From underneath, he pulled out a piece of cloth. This is a wrist holster for the wand. There should be one in each of your boxes. The wands themselves are made of the same type of materials as your existing Ollivander ones. Simply a far better quality. As such, there should very little adjustment needed to use them. He handed the holster and box to Ron and stepped back again. At some point, you will all be disarmed by a Death Eater, and as Death Eaters are generally unable to keep from gloating over a disarmed opponent, I will take the opportunity to reach up from the grave and strike at them in a final time. The wands are not gifts. They are last act of revenge. No one seemed to know what to say, and Harry assumed Snape had planned it that way. You may go. The others will want to travel soon. Everyone nodded dumbly, and some mix of fear and obedience kept anyone from even uttering a thank you. "Remain a moment, Potter." With the rest gone, Harry finally plucked the wand from its case. He did not want to appear ungrateful, and some part of him berated himself for even having to put on a facade. Presents were too rare in his life for him to take anyone's generosity for granted. But he could not help but feel let down. As he turned the wand over in his hand, he realized that not only had Snape given him a wand that was far less impressive than what the others had received, it was nearly an exact duplicate. Still, he had no right to be disappointed. "Not much to look at, is it?" Snape said. Harry never grew used to Snape's penchant for knowing his thoughts. "It's lovely, sir," Harry lied. "I know you said you didn't want us to say thanks, but you were disappointed, which is to be expected. However, Harry, I can assure you that far more planning and work went into that wand you hold when you went into any of the others. For those, I simply had the Montanus match the wand and core, and left the aesthetics to them. Yours had to be nearly exact replica. There is a difference, though. I do not know if you have held it properly yet to have discovered it." Puzzled, Harry shifted the wand, holding it as if ready to spell. Harry felt a subtle series of ridges under his thumb. "It's notched, or something." Snape nodded. "Done so you can tell them apart. Have you figured out why yours needed to look the same as the old?" "Because of Voldemort," Harry said simply. "I am grateful to see you thinking logically rather than sentimentally." "I don't suppose I am, Professor. I don't really know why, but everything's because of Voldemort, so it seemed a good guess." Harry knew the joke came out flat, and Snape gave one of those looks that could almost border on sympathetic. "I suppose that is true," Snape said. As for the wand, there is one quality that was deliberately not reproduced." He looked to be waiting for Harry to catch up. "The core is not from foxes." "No, correct. That may or may not be a liability, Harry. But both Albus and I feel that it is better if your spare wand not be linked to the Dark Lords. While that may have saved your life, you cannot assume that he will be unprepared next time. It is possible that he will even find a way to use that against you. So if he does, he won't be able to tell which wand I'm using." Harry caught on, and he suddenly felt stupid for feeling bad about that gift. "Correct. As for which to use when you find yourself face to face with him, it may very well prove immaterial. But if not, only if you will be in a position to choose." Harry had another thought. If they look the same, I can use mine around other people, right? no one at school would know the difference. As long as you are careful not to display both at one time, I see no reason why you can't use that wand instead of the other, if you want." The young man smiled. He liked the idea of hiding his secret in plain sight. It was more than made up for the ordinariness of his wand. As beautiful as everyone else were, at least he could use his whenever he wanted. Harry still wanted to thank the man, but was again interrupted. You should go, Harry. They are no doubt waiting." With a wince, Snape's hand went up to grip his mark through his robe. "And please tell whomever it is still here, that I will join the facility back at the school when I am able." Harry's eyes grew wide at the strain in Snape's voice. "It's burning. You didn't expect to be called, did you?" No, I didn't. I did not. And the pull is very strong. Something is afoot." Before Harry could ask anything else, Snape was out the door and moving swiftly down the stairs. Harry followed, and after a few moments taken to explain Snape's sudden departure, the group of students were port-keyed to Hogwarts. Harry rushed his friends to the Gryffindor common room as soon as he could get away from the adults without raising suspicion. Once they were alone, Harry dropped his trunk and sat on one of the couches. "I'm checking up on Snape," he said. "He wasn't expecting to be called back to Voldemort this week." "Do you think he's been discovered?" Neville asked. "I don't know. Voldemort may just be checking up about what he'd been planned for me. Probably wants to gloat. I'll try not to be long." The group looked nervous, but everyone nodded. Harry was relieved that no one tried to talk him out of it. Getting into Voldemort's mind took little effort. He no longer needed to get himself quite worked up anymore. He took that as a sign that he had more control over the bond now that he had taken the time to focus on it. Dark stone walls slid past as he made his way down the halls in long, flowing strides. The sound of his servant's steps followed him as he expected. "She is waiting in the laboratory. If she dies too soon, I will be most displeased." "Yes, my lord." Snape's voice carried from behind as they entered a dark chamber. A long table held orderly rows of potions. Behind them, shackled to the wall, was the prize. Snape stepped into view and went over to the prisoner. As the potion master studied her. I'm sorry. Someone just commented on my video saying, "Voldy, you ass." It's probably from my other video I just uploaded today. Oh my gosh, you guys kill me. I love when you guys comment me weird stuff because it makes my day. Approached his into view and went over to the prisoner. As the potion master studied her wounds, Voldemort, I almost call him Voldy, Voldemort savored the taste of blood in the air. Unable to resist, he approached his latest toy and tilted her face into the dim candlelight. Dried blood glued her hair to her face, but he could still make out her features and her eyes slightly open. I'm getting my Voldemort voice back. I don't know why it didn't come out earlier. And her eyes were slightly open, so she was conscious, if only barely. That was good. It meant she was strong. Many young girls her age had died after much less. He would make sure that strength lasted the week as he made her pay for aiding Potter. No! I just looked ahead a little bit, and the next words are gonna trigger you. So, trigger warning for you guys, okay? Breathe for me. And out. Okay, ready for you guys? Miss Lovegood, Snape said, his voice cold and distant. I see my master has caught up to you. You should have killed yourself. With a sweet snicker, the teacher grabbed a handful of her hair and forced her head back, pouring a potion down her throat. He let go of her, and her head dropped heavily against her chest. She will survive, my lord. In a few hours she will be well and well again for her amusement. Your amusement. I am honored that you have trusted me with her life, just as you trusted me with her boyfriend's death. This is why I kind of cracked up to this. I lost my Voldemort voice already. Boyfriend? Voldemort's voice hissed from his steely throat. Potter is her boyfriend? Satisfaction filled him as he planned new ways to make this girl scream for her own death. Well, damn it. Yes, calling Snape her here was the correct choice. Only a master could keep the girl alive through what he would do to her. Oh boy. I cringe. I have just learned of it myself, my lord. They have been corresponding through Dumbledore all summer. No doubt the pining brat has already emptied the stock room of every candy store in Hogwarts as he anxiously awaits her arrival tonight. I don't know why I'm getting this giggly. I'm just imagining it. I'm like, yeah, I knew it was a ship, but in this story, I don't know where you pulled this out of, but it was his ass, maybe. Another snicker. And her father? He is dead? Alive when your brethren left him, but wounded and wandless. I am told he will not survive the night. Though I care little if he lives or dies, she was the target. Of course, my lord. Snape bowed respectfully and turned to his work table. She shall need an hour or more before her potion have her healed to your satisfaction. Shall I have a chair brought for you here? The man was such a good servant, always mindful of his place and always careful to see the lord's needs. There is no need. I will leave you and your work. Had I known that Potter cared for her, I would have had instructed my children to be more careful in her capture. See to it that she recovers completely. Of course, my lord. I promise she will not disappoint you. I will inform you as soon as she is ready. With a nod, he turned and left the room. In an hour he would play. Maybe he would have Severus show Potter pieces of the girl before he killed her. Ew! Oh, gosh. Harry pulled himself away, worried about that his revolution would become strong enough for Voldemort to sense through the scar. Disoriented for a moment, Harry pulled himself together as the full weight of Snape's odd comment hit him. Voldemort's got Luna! Harry jumped from the couch and ran to his trunk, rummaging around for Marota's map and his cloak. Snape's going to free her. We need to meet them under Honeydukes. Wait a minute! Harry!
Hermione said as Harry made for the port key. We need to tell someone what's going on. If you heard what Snape said, Voldemort did too, didn't he? It was code. There's no time to explain, Hermione. We should tell someone, though. Can Crookshanks get a message to Dumbledore? Or Remus, if he's still here? Brilliant! Hermione paused to write a quick note, which she tucked under Crookshanks' collar. Take this to the headmaster, Dumbledore, Crookshanks. Hurry! Run! The cat took off an orange streak, heading down the corridor. Harry watched the cat animal with satisfaction, hoping that it was indeed trying to find the headmaster and not off looking for the garden gnomes. The group made it to the passage in record time. As they neared the end of the tunnel, Harry slowed to a halt. We need a plan. There will probably be people up there, and Luna looked really bad. Snape can't just carry her into the basement of Honeydukes. I'm going to go up with the invisibility cloak. Let's all go up, said Ron. We can sneak one at a time. If any Death Eaters show, we'll be there to help. Harry nodded. We should still have some time before Voldemort notices he's missing. But that's a plan. If we can't still get back into the passage, use the Shrieking Shack or head for the gate. Okay? I don't know what the words are like on the secret passages, but we should be safe if we use this regular gate. Hopefully Dumbledore will send someone there. Everyone agreed, and Harry slipped his cloak on and headed through the trapdoor. Out in the street, Harry picked an out of the way corner and watched the crowd. How long would Snape take to get here? How much time had passed since Voldemort left him alone with Luna? Harry cursed himself for not checking the time earlier. Moments passed, and Harry saw Ron come out of Honeydukes. He made his way behind his friends and whispered in his ear, causing Ron to jump. See the car over there? Right where the post office sticks out into the street. I'll be there, okay? Try to find somewhere on the side of the street. I don't know where Snape will be coming from. Having collected himself, Ron nodded silently and made his way down the street just as Hermione and Ginny came out onto the street and casually window shopped as they headed further away. Scanning the crowd, Harry spotted a flash of dark robes hidden by shrubs. Wand out, Harry crept along until he spotted the professor's face. Relieved but still wary, he avoided stepping on any twigs or leaves as he approached. Professor, he whispered as he neared him. Snape looked up, his eyes alert. It's me, Professor, it's Harry. The other man nodded, still searching for the source of the voice. Harry rested his hand on the postmaster's shoulder. Now he could see that he was cradling Luna against him, and the girl was almost entirely enveloped in his robes. Is she going to be okay? She will be fine. I gave her healing potions and one for sleep. Her wounds are serious, but Madame Pomfrey can restore them. And how are you managing to stay hidden? Invisibility cloak, Harry explained. I'm going to put it around you, okay? Do you know where the trapdoor in Honeydukes is? I have never used that particular passage. Lupin informed me of it just this summer.
Then I'll have to sneak back in there with you. Harry glanced around for onlookers and swept off the cloak. Wasting no time, he draped it over Snape's shoulders and tucked it around Luna. When Harry returned to the streets, neither Ron nor the girls were in sight. Worried about their disappearance, Harry forced himself to trust them to find their own way back to the school. Once inside the candy store, again he heard Snape's voice just behind him. You will need to wait for the right moment before going into the basement. I will meet you there. Harry felt something unseen brush against his back, and knew that any response would not be heard. Pretending to pursue the new batch of lava gumballs, he edged closer to the doorway. Finally, opportunity presented itself in the form of a toddler, a barrel of slippery suckers, and suddenly very distracted store attendant. Once back in the cellar, Harry pulled the trapdoor open, surprising Neville, who barely contained his shriek of surprise. Everything okay, Harry? He asked, then contained another shriek as Snape materialized in front of him. Harry followed him into the passage and pulled the door closed. Snape was kneeling down, and his fingers pressed against Luna's neck. She remains stable, the professor announced. Lumos. I don't think I'm saying that right, and it's bugging me. Harry said, bathing the four in white light. Now that he could see her clearly, Harry's heart started thumping harder in his chest. Blood and dirt was caked in her hair and on her face. Several gashes on her sleeves were stained red. Neville was staring at her. Without a word, Snape stood and hurried down the corridor, leaving Harry and Neville to catch up. After 100 meters, he stopped suddenly. Eyes narrowed. He turned around, glaring at Neville. Longbottom, take her. Neville stammered something, but held his arms out. She hardly weighs anything at all, Neville said to Harry. She has lost a great deal of blood. Blood has weight, and as much as the more blood she loses, the less she will weigh. She is still a burden. However, for now, she is your burden, not mine. The words were cruel and cold as he spoke them, and Neville turned white at the callousness. Harry was taken aback, but realization dawned on him quickly. Neville stumbled forward, still gripping his wounded friend to him. Harry and Snape led the way. How long until he finds out? Harry asked Snape in a voice he hoped Neville wouldn't hear. Not long, I would imagine. Tell Poppy that she was given nothing unusual, and the curses that caused her wounds have all faded. There should be no residual. I didn't know that residue had an L on the end. Maybe that's not what it is. Magic to complicate her treatment. Harry's jaw clenched. This was not supposed to happen. He knew the secret to freeing Snape was somewhere in his head. He just needed time to find it. He needed to talk to Ron and Hermione and Dumbledore, but about what he had seen the other night. He was supposed to have another week, not mere minutes. Light from ahead of them caused the three to slow down. Harry grabbed the invisibility cloak from Snape and ran ahead as he pulled it over him. If enemies were coming for them, they would soon get a surprise. But no enemies were lurking, only a frantic Remus, who nearly ran into Harry as the boy removed the cloak. Remus! I've got Snape and Luna. We're okay, but I don't I don't know where Ron, Hermione, and shut up, you, shut up. Not you guys, but I'm talking to my stomach. Albus is, I don't know where Ron, Hermione, and Ginny are. They may be at the gate. Albus is going through the gate. Harry, don't worry. If they're there, he'll find them. And if they're in trouble, that's the best place for him to be. What about the Shrieking Shack? I told them to use the passage if they had to. Harry was consumed with worry, but knew that panicking would only slow down everyone. Damn! Remus drew his wand. We didn't send anyone that way. Don't worry, Harry. I'll head out through Honeyduke's and come back through the shack. I know the old place better than anyone else. Do you know if any Death Eaters are about? Harry shook his head. I didn't see any I recognized, and if Voldemort knew Snape had betrayed him, he'd know it. But it's just a matter of time. Remus nodded in understanding. With a final readable look at Snape, Remus saluted with his wand and ran down the passage to Hogsmeade. Neville awkwardly shifted Luna's weight, and Snape motioned for them all to continue. They did not make it very far. Harry had taken a few steps when Snape let out a gasp and fell against the wall. He rushed to his teacher's side to find him grasping his arm. Caught between his friend nearly dead and a friend he knew was quickly dying, Harry made a decision. Neville, can you make it back to the castle alone? Neville nodded confidently in the question, but his gaze quickly turned and worried to Snape. Get help for Luna, then. I'm going to stay here with Snape. Send Dumbledore down here as soon as you can, though. I think we're going to need him, too. With Neville running as fast as he could with his burden, Harry grabbed Snape's wrist. The man was not making a sound, but his whole body shook violently. Harry's scar throbbed in time, and he knew he was feeling rage beyond anything Voldemort had sent to him before. His mind raced as he conjured up every conversation he and Hermione had about the mark. But it had always been conjuring. What if this? What if that? What if the mark had been burning? Hermione's voice came to him. He had no answers to that either, but his guesses were the best thing he had to go on. It might kill him, it might make it worse, but it might work. Before he could reconsider, Harry grabbed Snape's arm. The man was writhing in pain, and he took all of Harry's strength to put the man's arm away from his chest, long enough to push up the sleeve. In a single motion, Harry laid his arm across the now bloody mark that burned across Snape's flesh and cast the binding charm. Ropes tangled around both forearms, pressing Snape's skin to Harry's skin to Snape's. With the contact made, Harry slipped out of himself into a world filled with pain. Oh boy. Okay, guys. Hey, it's shorter than last time. I tell you what. Okay, thank you guys for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this one. I sure did. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Put on push notifications if you haven't yet, so you're notified every time I post. As you know, I have finished a dreary fan fiction. Please let me know what you want to hear next. And, just to let you know, tomorrow, I will say this again, around 4:45, my friend, if you don't know, Luna is coming to stay with me for 3 days. So you might hear her in 3 different different episodes or videos. So, she's going to be listening to me doing it. She's not going to probably join in because, first of all, I don't want her to join in on a story that I've already been doing. But a dry fan fiction that you want me to do, I have some I can do, but it's up to you guys. Thank you guys so much so much. I love you guys so much. I love that you're always here for me. And I just want to say this to you guys. You are amazing. I just dropped my phone. Why? Why does this happen to me? I just dropped you on the floor. Okay. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for being you. Be happy, be healthy, always be loving. I love you guys so much.